So, the question for today, what is a howitzer and why is it relevant? A howitzer is something in between a mortar, which is sort of something an infantryman might carry. You set it up and it strikes nearby, and then a gun is a huge thing which travels, many, many, many miles. Although I'll admit that I often refer to howitzers as guns. But they fire shells as well. They aim to hit a target with conventional explosive effect at a long distance. Anyway, howitzers are probably something that you associate with the Second World War and nothing more. Many people think that they're not in use anymore, that they're not important at all nowadays. Why does one need a howitzer when one could use a cruise missile, for example? Spear 3 can have more and greater effect at longer range. Well, artillery is still important for a few reasons. Even if Spear 3 is more accurate and can go further, and can probably do more, artillery still has its use. It can suppress an enemy by laying down fire. It can break up enemy concentration of force, that is to say that if shells start landing, people tend to disperse pretty quickly. And they are actually surprisingly accurate. They can strike high-value targets with decent precision. And they're great, of course, for larger and longer scale fire and maneuver. That is to say, if you're commanding entire battalions, then it's probably not enough to be laying down rifle fire. And artillery is, of course, far more cost-effective than a cruise missile. And in any case, in war, in a campaign, generally, one of the key factors of who wins or loses is who runs out of money first, who can maintain the effort. Plus, since World War II, they have had a load of upgrades, howitzers, with more than double the range and half the weight. So they are actually advancing, and of course they're super cost-effective in most circumstances, and that's a very good thing. So they are absolutely still in use, they do have a purpose. When we do think of howitzers, in the modern day though, myself included, we tend to think of the traditional towed artillery. We think of either the bulky, towering, powerful thing of World War II, or we imagine what's in use today. Something akin to Britain's light gun L118, which is a form of towed artillery, and it's a British invention used all over the world to great effect. What don't we often think? And that is the idea of mobile howitzer vehicles. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Because a lot of people don't even know that these vehicles exist. Now, Archer is one of those mobile howitzer vehicles. It's nothing new. Mobile vehicles using howitzers have been around for a while, but it is incredibly advanced. What Archer is it's by BAE Systems, an articulated wheeled artillery system, and it's excellent in so many ways. I remember about a year ago, it really shocked me how effective the system was, and I saw a YouTube video. I'll leave a link to it in the description, but BAE Systems displays it brilliantly. So the unit drives down the road. It's this big, huge, bulky thing with a massive gun on the back. Looks a bit like something crossed between a lorry you might see on the motorway and an excavator. Anyway, it drives down the road, it stops very quickly, and it immediately starts preparing its howitzer gun, which takes a total of 14 seconds. It then aims and fires 9 seconds later. It fires a shot every subsequent 8 to 10 seconds. It then packs itself up, and the entire unit is moving again in 24 seconds after that. All in all, in the video, it took 74 seconds, less than a minute, to stop, calibrate, fire 3 rounds, pack up, and get on the move again. Archer moves before the first shell has even made an impact on the target. The first comment on the video is, "That's a proper drive-by," and the person who said that isn't wrong. Imagine a world where you can fire 3 shots in a mobile howitzer using 105mm M982 Excalibur shells, or bonus submunition shells, from a fully automatic magazine, and then move off before the first shell even strikes the target. Well, you don't have to, that's the world we're living in, and it's pretty incredible stuff. Not least because of the firepower itself, but because of how useful this sort of vehicle is. It's bulky, but it's mobile, that's the idea. There are 3 variants of Archer, either being developed or that have been developed. There is a 6x6 Volvo version, an 8x8 RMMV version, and a 10x10 Oshkosh. And if you think that's not fun to say, you're wrong. The 10x10 Oshkosh, which is sort of a vehicle up to 10-wheel drive. And because of this, not only is Archer really super mobile, but it can go off-road. It can be somewhat stealthy, and with an impressive speed of 56 miles per hour. For a machine of that size, it can only really be emphasized how impressively maneuverable it is. And I get that it's hard to believe, but there are pictures of this, huge monster of a vehicle in a wood line that it's driven into, and it's pretty much impossible to spot. It blends in really, really well, considering its color, with like pine forests and stuff like that. It's also pretty rugged in the way it can deploy. It can operate perfectly well in up to a meter of snow, and can basically continue to drive for a long, long period of time with every single one of its 10 wheels punctured. And of course it has to be this sturdy, particularly in snow, because I believe it's operated by Sweden. Because of course the Howitzer used is made by Bofors, which is BAE Systems, but it's originally Swedish, I think. Maybe wrong on that, anyway. Archer operates really well alone, of course, but what really makes it powerful is when it can operate in groups, able to synchronize with other units in order to have an effect on target. And this is where the power really comes in. If you have 10 Archer units, which all arrive via different means, or even arrive together down a single pathway, and all fire on a single target, able to fire, I think, 6 shots, and then those 6 shots, dependent on the arc of fire, will hit the target simultaneously. If you then have 60 shots hitting a target simultaneously, and then every single one of these, huge gun lorries disperses in a different direction, then you can have a large assembly of force. You can strike the target with an enormous amount of firepower, and then stuff can get away quickly, before impact is even made. Additionally, a lot of the other mobile artillery units, in comparison, Archer has quite a suite of firepower and protection. It utilizes the M151 Protector remote-controlled weapon system, which is basically the same thing that we use on the Mastiff. And I don't know what you'd call it, but in addition to this, it protects the personnel really well. It has a sort of armoured area, an armoured driving area for a driver, and basically up to 4 personnel members, including the driver. And that's important because it can resist, I think, 7.62 entirely, just bounces off. Anyway, in regard to the specifications, it has a mass of about 30 tons, an overall length of 14.1 meters, a gun barrel of 8 meters, or 8.06, a width of 3 meters, a height of 3.3 or 3.9 meters, and a crew of, as I said, up to 4. That's basically 2, which is a commander or a driver, and then 1 to 2 operators. But the system can be operated in itself by a single soldier, which is what makes it pretty effective. If you were really in a dire situation, you could have one person driving, stop, operate the weapon system, and then drive off again once it's done. So technically, it could be operated by a single soldier. Now, the standard shells used on Archer go about 19 miles, but the Excalibur shells, which are, the most advanced shells really, can travel up to 31 miles. Because basically they have these specialized fin systems that allow them to glide, but also GPS coordination and targeting systems, which are pre-programmed really through the Archer system before it's fired. And it can fire a shell about every 7.5 seconds. Although when in salvo fire mode, it can fire every 5 seconds or so. And what's even more impressive about this is, as I mentioned a moment ago, Archer can fire up to 6 rounds at different trajectories and make them strike the target simultaneously. Meaning, again, it can have huge impact and be gone before the enemy even knows what's happened. And unfortunately, while it only has a magazine that holds 21 rounds, so it couldn't fire, let's say if it was in salvo mode, up to 720 odd rounds. My maths is probably off there. In an hour. It does have to reload. But the good news is that the reload only takes about 10 minutes, and you have to use this sort of external reloader device, but nonetheless, it's pretty quick for what it is, that being a mobile howitzer. Now, of course, because it's mobile, it can drive, so it's not limited by having, let's say, a maximum of 31-mile range. It has a range in ability to drive of about 650 kilometers, plus the firing range on top of that. So all in all, Archer is impressive, and I do recommend you go watch the video because it's a really quite cool system. It protects well, it travels far, it hits hard, it fires fast, and it moves off rapidly, and it hides pretty well too. So what more could one really want in a system? And for all of this, a unit will only set you back about £4.5 million. So I'll leave it there.